3, 4. I am a lineman for the county, and I drive the main road, searching in the sun for another overload. I hear you singing in the wire, I can hear you through the whine, and the Wichita lineman is still on the line. I know I need a small vacation, but it don't look like rain. And if it snows, that stretch down south won't ever stand the strain. And I need you more than want you, and I want you for all time. And the Wichita lineman is still on the line. I need you more than want you, and I want you for all time. And the Wichita lineman is still on the line. Still on the
I like that. All right, Galveston.
Okay, everyone, this is Bowleg Leopard. I'm back, and we're loaded with topics today. It's not going to be very easy to get through everything. Of course, that was Wichita Lineman by Stone Temple Pilots. I keep this around, this actual background, because I always think I'm going to reuse that song for the intro, and yeah, you're probably going to hear it again sometime. In any case, I want this stream today to be a little bit more about one of the core reasons why I keep a channel like this around. It could be more useful for me to just do writing, or to, like many of us that started YouTube channels used to do. We used to shit post on Facebook, things like that. We used to do things like post memes, and some of us still do that. But what's the use of having something like a YouTube channel? In reality, what we're doing is we're providing kind of a bypass around the regular media, what everybody refers to as the mainstream media. That's really what we try to do. By we, I mean all sorts of people all over the spectrum, around the world, try to present data and facts that are not available to the general public. So essentially, I want you guys to help me as best you can before I get to kind of the foundation reason why I got back into not only YouTubing, because that's not the only thing I do. I do a lot of writing, but please follow me on Gab. You can also find my Discord. I think, one second. Where is it? Okay. So move that back. So the Discord I'll put in the chat. Just wanted to make sure that wasn't exposing too much. But the fact is that we have right now across the West and probably, in other countries as well. My friend is saying, show my boobs. You want to see a bunch of hairy chest territory, man? It's not. That's okay, man. Let's see here. So here's the Discord link. So we have Wally in the chat. In any case, yeah, the foundation. Why are we doing things on YouTube? Why does anybody do it? There's a lot of people who. I'm not the only person who does this. There's a lot of people who try to do the same thing, and I think some of them do it like much better than me, because they have it's their career or whatever. There's a guy named Nuance Bro who's on YouTube. There's a guy on YouTube named Actual Justice Warrior. I think that they do fantastic jobs because they have their actual careers dedicated to it. I don't have that luxury yet, and I don't think I ever will. Not the way the economy is working. It's actually harder to get a job in journalism. Even if you're a good journalist, it's not exactly easy to maintain your job. First of all, they tell you to compromise on certain stories that are not convenient for your employer to expose. You can see that with what happened during the Me Too era, when a lot of the stories that came out about Harvey Weinstein, it turned out that they had been suppressed for years by NBC and by the New York Times, for example, in order to maintain access to a lot of these popular and powerful leaders in media, including Harvey Weinstein. And they wanted basically to preserve their access to those people in order to avoid having to deal with hostility when they want to interview guests and get the scoop on certain things that are coming out, for example, movies that are coming out, because they have a commercial interest in it. So that, I believe, is one of the reasons that establishment media is falling apart. It's not necessarily a right and left issue. Some of it is just the fact that people are essentially tired of having to have their news filtered through the corporate media. Now, there are people, for example, on this post, this is Bishop Talbert Swan, who is, he's a minister, or I guess, well, he's a bishop, obviously, from his title, but he's part of the Church of God over in, apparently, Massachusetts. And during the past week, there's been a lot of controversy and back and forth bitterness over the murder of Jasmine Barnes in southern Texas. And I believe that originally one of the quote-unquote journalists who tweeted about it was of course Talcum X Sean King. We can actually, why don't we just pull up Sean King and Jasmine Barnes. So now they're saying that it was his tip that led to a suspect being charged in the case of Barnes's death. But it says here, this from Daily Caller, okay, so, and it was published today, only 6 hours ago. It says, even after a tip, sorry, it was only 4 hours ago, even after a tip, Texas Sheriff and Sean King pushed false narrative in Jasmine Barnes' murder. It was revealed Sunday that a tip provided to activist Sean King and Harris County, Texas Sheriff Ed Gonzalez led to the arrest of a suspect in the murder of 7-year-old Jasmine Barnes. Barnes' killer was initially described as a white male, leading to widespread allegations that she was a victim of a hate crime, but Gonzalez revealed Sunday that a black man has been arrested in the case. New questions are being raised, though, after it was revealed that King and Gonzalez received the tip on January 3rd. Both pushed the theory of a white suspect even after receiving the tip. Harris County... I don't know why this stupid ad is playing here. Harris County Sheriff Ed Gonzalez acknowledged at a press conference Sunday that he received a tip from King in the middle of the week that Barnes' killer was not the white male initially suspected in the case. So this is a guy, Sean King. You have to understand the strangeness of the situation. He's a guy who constantly says that police officers and law enforcement are racist, but he did tip off the police concerning a suspect who is likely at the moment he's the only suspect arrested. He did rat the guy out. So which one is it? Are the police racist, or are you cooperating with the police? You can't have both worlds, and that's basically the dual reality that Sean King basically lives in. Yeah, Gabriel Swift, it's the same Talcum X. Welcome to High Desert Pioneer from Nevada. Haven't seen you in a while. I do see sometimes I don't get to see your stream very often, but thanks for joining. In any case, you do have here evidence that they promoted something that they knew was probably not really true. King wrote Sunday on Instagram they received the tip on January 3rd, a 20-year-old black man named Eric Black Jr. and another man had shot Barnes. The girl was killed around 7 a.m. on December 30th while riding in a car with her mother and 3 siblings. I reported this to the sheriff immediately because a witness was so compelling, but the sheriff and I both just could not make sense of it, King wrote Sunday shortly after Black Jr. had been charged with capital murder. But King and Gonzalez's timelines raised questions because both continued disseminating information suggesting that the suspect in the shooting was white. Gonzalez retweeted post as recently as Saturday of a composite sketch of a white man who was initially sought as a suspect in the case. It is unclear what time Gonzalez circulated the tweets. He said Sunday that Black Jr. was apprehended on Saturday afternoon. King also circulated the sketch after receiving the tip. He posted a request Friday on Twitter for information about Robert Cantrell, a white man who had been arrested in the Houston area on felony charges. Cantrell's mugshot closely resembles the composite sketch, which was drawn by celebrity sketch artist Lois Gibson. Now, I'll say what's the hazard in this? Okay, so it's okay for people to tweet out the names of suspects. I don't think that that's the worst thing in the world, but the only tip that they had to lead to this guy was that he was driving a red truck. Now, the problem that is that if this guy, who is a felon, had fled the scene of his arrest or gotten into some altercation with a police officer, he could have probably gotten his ass whooped. And, that's the hazard of any, if it was a black guy, that could also happen. So it's kind of irresponsible if they already think that they have a suspect. And, I don't understand why King thinks that he can have it both ways. You can't call the police, pathological racists, and at the same time cooperate with the police on hunting down people, both black and white, that you think are so. I think the guy is basically, he thinks that he's basically Superman. He's looking for truth and justice and the American way, I guess, even though I don't think that Sean King believes in it. Good evening, DI Freighter Watcher. Thanks for joining in, ma'am. I think it is ma'am. Please tell me if it is ma'am or it is not ma'am, because nowadays it's apparently a big issue. It's a big topic in America. It is ma'am or it isn't ma'am. I'm just joking. I think D.I. Freighter once told me that she's a woman. In any case, they were basically chasing after this guy. Gibson is the same artist who drew a composite of man who porn star Stormy Daniels claimed threatened her in 2011. That composite bears a striking resemblance to the sketch in the Barnes case. Let me see that. So the sketch, it is a little, it's the same type. It's the same type of drawing. I mean, what the hell? Barnes' murder drew widespread national media attention, partly because of suspicions that she was killed in a racially motivated shooting. Barnes' mother, LaPortia Washington, asserted the shooting was a hate crime. Texas Representative Sheila Jackson Lee echoed that theory at a rally Saturday. Do not be afraid to call this what it seems to be a hate crime, the Democrat told a crowd gathered at the Houston Walmart where Barnes was killed. The suspect in the case was initially described as a white male in his 30s or 40s driving a red pickup truck. King and other activists and celebrities pushed that story, with King setting a $100,000 reward for information leading to the suspect's arrest. Yeah, and I did see that. Race baiting TYT took down both videos on this. Yes, I am a woman, a wife, a mother, a grandmother. Just making sure. But if you decide not to be one, let us know, because I guess in our era you can. This is not the first case in which King has made allegations in racially charged cases. King accused a Texas state trooper on May 20th, 2018, by name of sexually assaulting a black woman while she was in jail. Okay, I see what you mean. That they took down two videos. Okay. But no retraction of their original reporting. That's it. I mean, that's par for the course with them. They don't have any integrity. And what happened in May was pretty bad as well. And I'll tell you why. Because this woman, Sharita Dixon Cole, was a close friend of Lee Merritt, the same attorney who was working with Barnes' family, King wrote at the time. So essentially, they're recycling the same loser team of people to sue police officers. Now, I've made it clear as many times as I can that I don't care about the police. The police can do their job, and I don't have to help them if it's not in my interest. Obviously, if somebody's trying to kill me, I'm going to help the police. If somebody's trying to kill some people in my family, some of my neighbors are actually some pretty nice people too. I might call the police if I need but we don't have to necessarily be the best friend of the police. But the fact is that when you have somebody who basically ripped off the plot from Crash, which was that basically you have to remember Matt Dillon's character in that movie groped Thandie Newton's character during a traffic stop. It basically fingered after like while her husband was basically he had his arms spread eagled across the vehicle. This turned out to be a complete and total hoax in real life, but she ripped it off, and people were saying, well, Sean King was propagating the story for a couple days at least, and it turned out to be complete garbage. So welcome, Larry. Larry Gerke is in the building. So thanks you guys for joining. Also, I say at the beginning almost as many times as I can, please follow me on Gab. I think Gab is the best place. I'm not always streaming. So sometimes if you guys want to send me a tip, if you guys want to show support, I think Gab is right now where I'd prefer to grow the channel following. I think you guys should give it a shot because it's a good platform, and they do have a strong commitment to freedom of speech. So yeah, that's basically the story. And Sean King had involvement, and then this Bishop Talbert Swan said a lot of sick bastards out here are doing victory dances because Jasmine Barnes' killer was not white. Don't worry, as sick as your white supremacist sons, fathers, spouses, and brothers are, just wait a day or so before one strikes again with another hate crime or mass shooting. Good evening, Cher. Are you watching Larry so he doesn't commit some sort of hate crime or mass shooting? Because apparently Bishop Swan thinks that might be an issue. Just saying. So this guy basically he went and started. This Tim Wise guy is also a piece of crap, by the way. He's they're all people who they want to create this this idea that you can't hold communities responsible for the fact that they let cold-blooded killers go unenforced in their own places. So Talbert Swan is basically complaining to the world today. He's going nuts. But the fact is that he has been saying for example, the undisputed heavyweight terrorist, murderer, pillager, rapist, colonizer, champion of the world, the white man. That's ripped off from Chris Rock. So he's stealing Chris Rock's joke. I remember that. That was on one of his albums, in fact. Let me see here. This is a man of the cloth, and he's tweeting to people, "Your birth is blasphemous." He's saying, "Hey, Twitter." I tweeted this out earlier. He said, "Hey, Twitter support. I think it's time for another purge. Where the hell are all these 5 to 12 follower racist trolls coming from, and why aren't you cleaning?" So he's basically he got caught accusing this guy isn't from Texas even. He's from Massachusetts, and he's tweeting out these accusations that white people are the real terrorists and whatever, based on a case that he doesn't really have any perspective on, because he's not from Texas. He's getting all of his information secondhand. But he's butthurt because people are pointing out that his buddy Talcum X got it wrong. Talcum X is a piece of crap. And this Talbert Swan, I'll show you in a second. These people don't know why if they think that it's a good thing to support Bishop Swan, I'll tell you why. Maybe tomorrow they might regret it. It's going to be pretty funny for those of you that are familiar with this channel. It's going to be pretty funny, but he's blocking people on Twitter. This is a piece of crap. Bishop Talbert Swan. He's getting help from people like Talib Kweli, D.L. Hughley, another idiot. Let me see here. There was one where he said, so he's asking, you use your police to profile and kill us, schools to miseducate us, banks to redline us, media to stereotype us, jobs to pay us lower wages, courts to incarcerate us, all because we're black. Then we have the nerve to ask U.S. why does it always have to be about to ask us why does it always have to be about race? Well, I'll tell you why. Because the person that you're supporting actually informed to the police. Let me see here. There was a tweet earlier where he said, white men are the worst terrorists. I think it was from today, though, so. He's claiming that Jesus is back. Jesus is black. This is this classic crap. And I'll tell you why people are going to react. People are going to kind of try to walk back from this. So back in the early 2000s, if you were a progressive, you wouldn't have wanted to be anywhere near this Bishop Swan. Because the fact is that back in 2004, he was promoting an ex-gay book called Closing the Closet, Testimonies of Deliverance from Homosexuality. And Ex-Gay Watch was publishing these attacks against him because they said, well, you're basically using pseudoscience in order to promote your radical religious beliefs. Now, I want to put it out there that I don't care about gays or ex-gays or whatever. I don't really. I mean, it's really none of my business, and I think I think that it's basically it's a huge distraction. Okay, if people want to seek therapy for something that they think is a problem for them, like being gay, I guess it's their right. But I would say that among liberals, it's not. It's not. So I would say that there's really a problem here when people are all of a sudden supporting this guy who, for years, was basically trying to, promote ideas that under the liberal mantle would be considered complete and total bigotry. The ex-gay thing. By the way, guys, like the video while you're at it. Help us. I think liking the video, by the way, it does help diminish some of the algorithms' ways of suppressing the video. So I think that tomorrow, first of all, Talbert Swan fought the entire day with Mark Dice and Paul Joseph Watson. So you're probably going to see a video tomorrow from Paul Joseph Watson and Mark Dice concerning this shithead. So now on to the next. So why am I bringing these things up? Okay, I said a little earlier in the video, in the stream, that there's a problem for people who are looking for justice and truth in journalism. Okay, when you're a journalist, I think you guys would agree with me. But if you're in the chat and you disagree, go ahead. When you're a journalist, you're not supposed to be trying to seek justice necessarily. Because when you report on a story, sometimes the situation is simply, it doesn't provide for any true justice. When you see two people assault each other on the street, they might both have a legitimate reason for doing so. There's no justice to be found there, except that, in our society, the law would probably convict both of them, provided they survive, of assault. If the law wants to press charges against two people for brawling, you charge them both with assault. They both serve whatever sentence is given to them. Sometimes it's a misdemeanor. And that's the way it goes. Is that justice? Not necessarily, because everybody in their mind thinks that the reason I got into this brawl is not the same reason as the other person. The other person was in the wrong, and I was in the right. And that's the way that people relate to that type of situation. Okay, everybody has their side of the story. The reason I got into blogging, eventually into doing videos like this one, into doing kind of makeshift investigations like what I did with the John Mattis situation, what I did last month with the Women's March and the Teachers Union. The reason I got into it was because of a much bigger, maybe it wasn't as big now that we're living in a situation where this happens every day, but in 2014 and 2015, there was the rape on campus hoax that happened at the University of Virginia. That permanently changed my perception of the media. It was the red pill moment for me. And I don't know about anybody else here. Everybody, I guess, has their own red pill moment. I've talked about it several times. I still think it was the greatest journalism hoax of the past, the past 20, 30 years until, now you can't even say that anymore, because you have so many other journalists who, instead of taking a lesson from this, instead of trying to better instead of trying to work on making the profession better and giving it more integrity, maybe they didn't have the strength to do it, because they don't actually control their own careers anymore. They're basically trying to get clicks. They're trying to get exposure. That's basically the job of a journalist today, not to reveal truth. And in some cases, they want to get only justice without using truth. And that's what I see when I see stories like what Sean King does. A rape on campus story, by the way, the journalist who wrote it, the journalist who wrote it was her name was Sabrina Ardelli, and for a couple years she wasn't even punished. She wasn't even fired from Rolling Stone. She'd ruined the lives essentially of a whole house of fraternity brothers and possibly other chapters, because when people know the fraternity, that certain stigma gets created nationwide against the fraternity. I'm not a big fan of fraternities, but frat bros have the right to a fair trial too. And those people were basically tried in the court of Rolling Stone and deemed guilty based on accusations of a woman who would never reveal her name. People still don't know her real name. And based on the fact that she claimed that she was gang raped at a party that happened on a date that no party ever happened. That was what really shocked me about the Rolling Stone story. And Rolling Stone didn't care. They dragged out the litigation in court, the litigation by the school, University of Virginia, the administrator, Nicole Aramo. That was, in my opinion, it was a show that a major publication, Rolling Stone, I guess, is kind of a joke now. But back in 2014, a lot of people probably used them as a reliable source of information. And as 2014 and 2015 rolled through, it was steadily revealed that they don't really care about reporting stories as truth. They're trying to create justice through a constructed story. And that constructed story is used in order to promote a certain vision of the world that they find more convenient than the world that we live in. So you guys talking about the Women's March here. Okay, so yeah, I would say that was a turning point in my life. And then you have people like this Bishop Talbert, who has influence. He's been tied to the governor of Massachusetts, former governor Deval Patrick. He's been tied to Elizabeth Warren, and the fact is that he just hates people. He calls what's her name, Candace Owens, the C word. Not the C word for women, the C word for black people. I can't say it because I don't want to get my channel bumped again. But he says things like that. So, it's just ridiculous. And then he got his Twitter account restored when it was Owens who was actually suspended not long after that for basically repeating the same tweets as I think it was Sarah Zhang. There's just no such thing as justice in social media or media in general, because they're there to promote their agenda. And obviously I have an agenda as well. But if I can't report things, if I can't write things that are correct, then there's no reason anybody who's reading my articles or anybody who's watching this channel would continue to actually read it. That you guys would easily lose faith in it. There's a guy on YouTube, some of you probably know about him, H.A. Goodman, and I agree with a lot of his viewpoints, but he keeps predicting things that don't happen, so I've stopped watching his channel. There's a guy who I've obviously talked to a number of times, Anthony Logan, and I've done a lot of gags on his channel and things like that. He plays along. This week he shared kind of this theory that Elizabeth Warren had a little black Sambo doll or vase up on her on top of one of her cupboards. Now, maybe it's true, but from what I saw, nobody could prove it, and nobody will be able to prove it, because by the time anybody is able to get word to Elizabeth Warren that something like this is being talked about, she can just go over to her house, take the vase out, smash it, put it in the just get rid of it. It's not that hard. It's useless. People should focus on trying to get stories that can be provable, things that can be articulated as the clearest truth that you can get. And when you find a story that is essentially, based too much on facts that can't be verified, then I'm sorry, you have to drop it. You have to just be the smartest person that you can, whether you're a shit poster. Now, if you're a shit poster, your goal is basically sometimes to troll people. So of course that goal is different from journalism. But if you're mixing the two, then it's really, it really becomes a problem. Those of you that know, I mean, some of you watch the guys on the intellectual dark web, such as Peterson and the Weinstein brothers, not not Bob and Harvey, but Eric and what's the other guy's name? Eric and Brett Weinstein and Dave Rubin. So a group of them, the Bogosian group, they put all of those crazy social justice articles together and got them almost. I think they were on the step of being approved by major peer-reviewed journals in feminism and social justice and gender studies. And eventually, eventually, these people, they were able to prove that these journals don't have real merit. But in the process, now they're being held up on. Bogosian is being held up on disciplinary charges because apparently there's ethics charges that he might have used human subjects, even though it's not the case. So people have to be careful about the professionalism of what they do. It happens to be I don't have a job in real life that actually is connected to what I do here, and it's probably better for me. I'm not working directly for anyone. I do write on a couple people's websites, but the fact is that there's a lot of people who engage in this type of work, the independent journalism, who don't have that luxury. They have to live by the sword and die by the sword, and it's a problem. So I try basically to write my things in order that I never, even if I'm not really accountable, because it's just me and the person whose website I posted on, I try to make it such that I can stand by what the sources that are within the article, rather than just certain hearsay and observations that I see that can't be proven or revealed to anyone else. If one person sees a vase being looking in a certain way, but they can't confirm that it looks like what they say it is, then it's just a theory. It will never be proven. So yeah, this guy, this Bishop Talbert is apparently just, he's a spark plug. He just goes after people and attacks them over various just various beefs that he has. So you can find, I'm gonna post as many of these. I didn't get to post all of them in the description, but after this I'll try to put this in the description. This one I'll put in the chat right now, so you can see exactly. So this Pastor Swan, or Bishop Swan, I think is going to pretty much, well, character limit's too big. I'll post it in the description then. Sorry about that. So, oh wait, we did need that one. So we're talking a lot about racial hoaxes today, racial hoaxes and in general media hoaxes, and we have to try our best as many times as we can. It's not just race, by the way. If you have journalism that's out there that basically is promoting crap, that is promoting things that are not happening, or not reporting things that are happening, then eventually people lose trust in the institution and they begin to basically listen to word of mouth. That's one of the reasons that a lot of what the fuck is going on here? There's a quiz on this article. This is stupid. I don't know why the Daily Caller and a lot of sites do it. I mean, don't try to support yourself from social media. Have a real life gig. Don't quit your day job and own your site so you can't be silenced. Look, I'll tell you the truth. I would rather be doing this as much as I can, but I see the way other people are struggling, and I don't think it's a good career path anymore. I think, unfortunately, it will take a few more years and probably some sort of crash in the journalism industry. One of these major media conglomerates will have to fall apart, literally fall apart, before we see that actual journalists will be able to make a lot of, make a decent living. Okay, because a lot of the people who are currently succeeding in journalism are basically, it's a top-heavy industry. Okay, you have some people like, a good example would be Maureen Dowd, who gets a column in the New York Times. She basically posts her personal observations of when it was President Obama. She would basically fawn over him like he was her little kid. And then now that it's Trump, it's the guy's basically like the devil himself. By the way, she'd also talk a lot of bullshit. She'd talk a lot of shit about Hillary Clinton, but it was like petty, bitchy shit. More Robitussin in your bong. I don't smoke weed. I don't. I was actually talking to somebody off air about that. I don't smoke. Thanks, Larry. I think that's a wish for good health. So, thanks. But in any case, yeah, the people like Maureen Dowd, the people like Chris Hayes. You can go across the media. You have what's the guy's name? The guy who used to own the Weekly Standard, and I think they just recently closed. Bill Kristol. Those people, they don't have to care necessarily about the profession of journalism, because it might be that they've already secured their future. They've already they've already gone and leveraged their futures based. They made the money that they needed, and they're able to sustain themselves on the fortune that they made in the past, and they're not even committed to their career anymore. So yeah. There's really a problem when you see these. What the fuck is with this Brady Bunch shit? Gotta get rid of this. I don't want to see Marsha Brady, in the buff. I want her to stay wholesome like you guys want her, right? Marsha Brady. So there was another hoax. Tim Pool has talked about it. From the New York Post. New York Post also has sometimes some crappy stories. It's really kind of sad, but what are you gonna do? It said at first it appeared to be just another story about a white person calling the cops on a black person over the summer, a supposedly racially motivated phone call to the police that caught international attention out of hundreds of others. Stories of police arriving to scenes across the United States to find black people committing crimes of barbecuing, sleeping in a university dorm common room, or selling water bottles were taking over the media. With each story, a white person made the phone call, and each case was given a memorable nickname. In this case, the caller was Doorway Debbie. On a midsummer day in July, Darcel Obregon ducked under an apartment building to shelter herself from the rain while waiting for an Uber. Minutes later, the front door swung open and out walked a 19-year-old girl who demanded that Obregon leave the premises immediately. The resident's name is Arabelle Torres, a 19-year-old student at Brooklyn College who also has autism. Lemmy would have hit it. Lemmy Kilmeister. It's not David Lemmy. That's a metal reference. Crowder sold out to Beck and has loads of Mug Club fans. Yeah, I thought Crowder would leave. That's a good point. It's kind of disappointing I haven't really watched his show recently, so I wouldn't know that. It could be because I'm just too busy. I came downstairs and a woman was standing as I am right now and wouldn't leave. Torres, who was describing the seeds of events that led her life to change, said to me while standing outside of her home in Park Slope, what might have been an unremarkable high-strung incident that occurs hundreds of times a day in New York City ended up becoming a fake news story that race baited an incident without credible evidence of bigotry. So you see her. She does look a little weird, but the story will actually explain why. Hey, ma'am, this is private property. Could you please move? Torres recounts saying to Obregon, an assistant to fashion model Ashley Graham, who just flat out So how do you say to somebody if you're walking around and people are asking you, if you're in among pleasant company at a party or something, and they ask, well, what do you do? And you say, I'm an assistant model to a plus size. I'm an assistant to a plus sized model. It's just bizarre. Ashley Graham is. I'll show you her picture. I don't hate on her like other people do, but it's kind of funny the way some people white knight for her. So she's. You guys can give your opinion. I wouldn't say that she's great, but she doesn't look ugly, but it's just weird. but this is the assistant to Ashley Graham. D.I. Freighter is saying, I gotta go. Take care. Thanks for the stream. Thank you for tuning in. As always, please share it and like it if you can. We have, Torres dialed 911. Obregon whipped out her phone and began filming. Later that evening, Torres was at a Broadway show. The words worthless skank popped up on her phone. As dozens more messages poured in, she found out that Obregon had posted the exchange on social media accounts accompanied with hashtags associated with race-related events, even though Obregon is not black. Hashtags such as white privilege and barbecue Becky were included. Barbecue Becky refers to an event during which a white woman called the police on black people for barbecuing in a public park, saying it was illegal for them to do so. The anti-racist internet mob found Obregon's posts, and so with that one, the barbecue Becky, I could believe that there was a problem with her. Mr. Oiseau says plus size models are not for me. I understand what you mean. I'm not exactly floored by her. I don't think she's ugly. I just don't understand why why she's a model, Although if you think about it, guys, remember, plus size people need people to model their clothes for them. Yeah, that's the one, Larry Gerke. So welcome, Mr. Oiseau. Welcome back. Haven't seen you in a while. The anti-racist internet mob found Obregon's posts and began to launch a seek and destroy campaign against Torres. Your Facebook is out there now. Enjoy being slaughtered by the masses. A California woman wrote. Obregon's Facebook post reads, on Sunday afternoon, I was in Brooklyn walking to the train when a sudden rainstorm began, and I hid in the doorway outside of a random apartment in Park Slope to shield myself from the rain and call an Uber. No more than 3 minutes later, a young woman who lives in the building opened the front door and told me that I cannot stand there and had to leave. I told her I was not going to move. Unbeknownst to her, I was just waiting for my ride and would be leaving in a couple minutes. So then she proceeded to call the police. Yeah, these are some strange photos, but comments in response to the video read, she's high on something, look at that jaw. She was just paranoid from whatever she just smoked. She is not Spanish, she looks Jewish. I can see that. You should have beat her up and worse. So it's like, long story short, it turns out that she had autism and she's paranoid. So, this isn't a case where you need the mass media to intervene and talk about somebody, or people to spread. You don't even need the media in this case. It's spread like wildfire. Hey, Lennon McCarthy, welcome back. I hope you're having a good weekend, man. If you want to join, let me know. So yeah, this is the state of journalism today. So this Tamar Lappin, who shared the story, it said here, Emily Crane's story covering Obregon's and Torres's interaction at the Daily Mail was deleted without any sort of retraction. Others still have not corrected their stories. Others made changes to the headline from white woman calls the cops on black women to woman calls cops on woman, which would not be that's not a newsworthy story. I asked Lappin if she would be willing to fix the damage she took part in. I really can't comment on that, she said. I've got to go, she said before hanging up the phone. Shortly after I spoke to Lappin, the racial language was removed from the story completely. It said updated without any additional detail as to why the language was changed. I asked Lappin why she had not included corrections to the bottom of her story. She said, it says updated on the top of the article. So I'll tell you what the problem is. So when I update a story, usually it's to add detail. I've almost never had to correct a story to change something I've gotten wrong. So, but the fact is that I publish on blogs, not necessarily on quote unquote real websites. But the fact is, so I've not, you can look through anything that I've written. I have not had any story where I've had to retract something that was completely fake or even partially fake, because I try to couch things in language where I let things be, I look at, sometimes when I'm uncertain of something, I put forward two possibilities. And in many cases, what I write is in the realm of opinion, and that gives me a bit of buffer from the consequences. But if you're a reporter like Lappin is, you shouldn't have the same degree of removal, okay, from the situation. If you're reporting, you're essentially committed to representing the facts as they are without injecting your opinion. If you're an opinion writer, you're able to say, well, what I'm presenting is commentary, and I'm not trying to be basically a reporter. I'm not CNN. I'm not. Well, CNN. You can throw out their news reporting now, but basically you're saying that what's here is in the realm of opinion and can be conjectured as false if you want. And I say that all the time. If people want to challenge something that I've written, you can go ahead. I'm not going to object. I'm not going to call you names like sellout and things like that what's his name, Bishop what's his name now, Swan said. Bishop Swan. It's wrong. If people are criticizing you and you're a man of the cloth and you think that you're going to be able to berate them into silence, then basically you're like an inquisitor. That's basically the type of bishop he is. In the beginning of the phone call with Lappin, I had asked if she remembered writing a story about someone with the name Arabelle Torres, and she said she could not recall, so she never even found out who this woman was. Perhaps there is some consolation that someone who wrote the story doesn't remember the name she tarnished. Maybe members of that internet mob will forget about the girl they tarnished too. So yeah, that's basically the gist of what I'm talking about. You have these people who are, they're so committed to finding some sort of justice that they're willing to throw away the actual standards of their job. Just check this. Yeah, it says here there might actually be somebody who has hacked and tried to copy my my Facebook account. So you guys be careful out there. There's this new thing where you see some of these people, like if you have a friend, this is why Facebook, I think we should all start trying to move over. That's why I'm telling you guys, we have to start moving over to other platforms like Gab, because on Facebook apparently there are fake accounts of people that are friending people that you're already friends with, and they're basically a precursor to you getting banned and them taking over your data. Nobody expects the Spanish Inquisition. Exactly. So moving on, there's a couple other stories I wanted to cover today. One of which you're probably going to like. Len McCarthy. David Brock says Bernie Sanders fans can't be allowed to poison another Democratic primary with personal attacks. So this is very ironic given that David Brock is the godfather of personal attacks in politics. The man he has literally no integrity. And I can't believe that people still will have him on their shows when he's just a compulsive liar. David Brock is the person who is likely behind the Mattis hoax. The John Mattis hoax was last year. There was a journalist, quote unquote journalist, who used to be a TV reporter named John Mattis, also a lawyer who infiltrated a Bernie Sanders campaign grassroots group in San Diego. In fact, I'm going to have some of those people on sometime. Haven't decided yet. And basically, he tried to insinuate himself among them. And then once the campaign was basically over, he started to claim that Russia had essentially infiltrated the Facebook group that they were part of with fake accounts and, spammed them in order to prevent them from voting for Hillary Clinton. Now, the fact of the matter is that if Hillary Clinton would have gotten more votes in San Diego, it wouldn't have made any difference. It would have made zero difference because San Diego, of course, is in California, which Hillary Clinton won by more than the polls indicated. So it's ridiculous. Let me see here. Oh, you guys are still going through the Monty Python thing. Let me see here. So yeah, that's it's ironic that they let him. This was published by NBC from this guy who is basically a Clinton propagandist. It says, I'm hardly the only political observer who blames Hillary Clinton's general election defeat to Donald Trump in part on personal attacks on Clinton first made by Senator Bernie Sanders, independent Vermont, and his backers. Those attacks from her left lay the groundwork for copycat attacks lobbied by Donald Trump and in the process helped hand the Supreme Court to the right wing for a generation. Don't believe me? Ask yourself who said what. I know the guys at Goldman Sachs, they have total control over him, just like they have total control over Hillary Clinton. I don't think you're qualified if you get $15 million from Wall Street through your super PAC. Do I have a problem when a sitting Secretary of State and a foundation run by her husband collects many dollars from foreign governments which are dictatorships? Yeah, I do have a problem with that. Yeah, I do. The Clintons have spent decades as insiders lining their own pockets and taking care of donors instead of the American people. It is now clear that the Clinton Foundation is the most corrupt enterprise in political history. And then 5, I think super predators was a terrible thing to say. 6, because super predators was a racist term and everybody knew it was a racist term. And then he has an answer key here. It says 1 Trump, 2 Sanders, 3 Sanders, 4 Trump, 5 Trump, and 6 Sanders. Look, it doesn't matter because everything, whether it was Bernie Sanders or Donald Trump, everything they said concerning Hillary Clinton in any of those 6 quotes was correct. It's correct. It's absolutely correct. I know. So they have total control over him, just like they have total control over Hillary Clinton. Yes, it's true. I don't know who he was talking about. I think he might have been talking about Ted Cruz. So the fact of the matter is that David Brock, after the 2016 election, wrote another letter to Bernie Sanders fans claiming that they should work together instead of working against each other. And he claimed, super PACs are necessary because that's the world we lived in. But that's not the principles that that side of the spectrum lives with. They don't want to depend on super PACs because they know that once you have super PACs that fund your campaign, they essentially have bought your silence because you want to get reelected. If you're a senator or you're a congressman or if you're a governor or if you're president, you are indebted to them, and they will basically hold you accountable because they've basically bought you. So that's 100% correct what Trump said, and it's correct that Sanders is correct if he says he objects to using super PACs. I think he has a point. Yeah, I saw that quote, Larry. I remember that. And then all of these are true. The super predators thing is I guess in the realm of opinion, but I think certainly among most people on the left, if you were to say that about people, yeah, they would consider it racist. And now through the 2018 Democratic presidential primary has only just begun, those same long knives, mostly courtesy of supporters of Sanders' prospective candidacy, are out for outgoing Representative Beto O'Rourke, Democrat of Texas, charging that he is not a true progressive. The reason he's taken money from PACs, so what do you want? The reason for these preemptive attacks, which has the markings of a coordinated effort, which Brock would know. This is peak projection, because this is a person who he pioneered some of the coordinated efforts that are being used by everyone today. That was basically, his organizations were the types that were, they were cutting edge at the time. This was in the early 2000s. Organizations like Media Matters, which he has founded, they basically they thrive on this type of crap. After losing the Texas Senate race to incumbent Ted Cruz, O'Rourke nonetheless has shot to the top in Democratic primary polls since Election Day, overshadowing both Sanders and another left-wing favorite, Senator Elizabeth Warren, Democrat of Massachusetts. In politics, you shoot up, not down. Bernie-crats seem determined to dust off the same destructive playbook this time around, even though the attacks against O'Rourke are flimsy and misleading. So I want to say that for him to accuse them of attacking someone else is so disingenuous and slimy that it's a disgrace that NBC is willing to run this piece of crap. Yeah, exactly. Lennon McCarthy knows. I mean, he lived through this. So if I could if you want to join the call, if you want to join and tell me your opinion, I'd be happy to. Let's see here. Let me just message him on Hangouts. Get the headset out. All right, we'll see if he says. He hasn't responded whether he wants to join or not. Okay, yeah, he says give me a couple minutes. So we're gonna hear from Lennon McCarthy soon from California. Bernie Cat seemed to determined to dust off the same destructive playbook this time around, even though the attacks against O'Rourke are flimsy and misleading. O'Rourke unseated a conservative Democrat in a primary and never tacked right in an election in deep red Texas. He has run in favor of federal legislation legalizing marijuana and the impeachment of President Trump. So realize how useless that is, that you're talking about running in a general election in 2020. Impeachment doesn't matter at that point. If you're trying to run to defeat Trump, then why do you care about impeaching him? Because, we're running out of time. For those of you that want him impeached, I mean, when is it going to happen? Is it going to happen after he wins re-election? Because that's going to be a very winning election slogan. Let's impeach Trump after I lose to him. That's basically what they're advocating for. Bernie supporters have made questionable claims about contributions to O'Rourke from the oil and gas industry. No, they're not questionable. They're confirmed, as well as support for certain Republican-sponsored House bills, but neglect to mention that the oil and gas money came mostly from low-level industry employees. Hundreds of thousands of Texans are... So no, a lot of the people who contributed to the O'Rourke campaign came from the actual tippy top, as Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez says, the tippy top of the oil and gas industry in Texas. So he is lying. He is a lying piece of crap. Let me see here. I'm just checking the chat. Sorry, guys. The real problem for Sanders supporters seems to be that this Kennedy-esque golden boy, as one has derided O'Rourke, seems perfectly poised to steal Sanders' thunder among the millennials and white liberals with his fresh energy and personal charisma. Thus, it's not enough to disagree with O'Rourke. His persona and reputation must be dragged through the mud. Democrats should greet this early maneuvering by Sanders supporters with alarm. If Democrats cannot show such tactics, which will be used against any non-Sanders candidate, because no one can get to the left of the socialists for what they are, they ignore them at their own peril. Failing to end this internecine warfare will mean that all members of the Democratic Party running for its presidential nomination will face months of minuscule ideological litmus tests turned into characters. No, by testing people on the issues that they are promoting, you filter them for whether they can be trusted. That's not an ideological litmus test. So I would say the problem with the Bernie-crats isn't that they're trying to hold people accountable for policies that they're supposedly promoting. Okay, you have to hold them accountable. Some of these you can't get people that are perfect. I would say that there's issues with complaining that a candidate does not support literally every problem that you support, but look, you have to have a certain baseline that you go to, and people like Brock don't even have it. Their baseline is that these people give them money, and that's basically their standard, nothing else. Let me see here. I have these friends who are like engaged in the dumbest crap right now. Exit out of there. So yeah, this was David Brock. He said, "We've seen this movie before. Sanders' assault on Clinton's progressive credentials. What progressive credentials? She doesn't have any. I mean, the Clinton's ideological credentials are in promotion of Hillary Clinton. That's the ideology that she believes in. Her ideology is the promotion of Hillary Clinton. It's not right wing. It's not left wing. It's her wings. That's about it. The atmosphere online was even more toxic. Pro-Bernie message boards lit up with a montage of Hillary hate. Here, Hillary was a corporate whore, a likely criminal in the email case, and the cheating mastermind of a rigged primary. No wonder Lock Her Up later became so resonant. In 2016, I ran a pro-Hillary super PAC, which attempted to defend the candidate against false attacks, many of which came from or originated to her left. Though they were hardly in charge of our messaging, it was made very clear to us by our allies at our campaign headquarters that any efforts on our part to push back against the left-wing anti-Clinton brigades were unwelcome assistance. They feared alienating Sanders' voters. The head in the sand posture was ultimately self-defeating. So what he's basically admitting is that he coordinated with her campaign. This is an important thing. If you're a super PAC, you're not allowed to directly communicate with the campaign. Okay, you're not allowed. It's a federal election. David Brock is basically admitting to committing a federal offense, an election violation, an FEC violation. If he communicated if his super PAC communicated directly with the Clinton campaign, which is what he said, okay, it was made very clear to us by our allies at her campaign headquarters, then he's committed an FEC offense and he should be fined, or they should be fined. Today, Democrats are rightly laser focused on picking a winner in 2020, and the stakes are just too high to let bad faith actors whose real aim is to smear Democrats as no different than Republicans stage inter-party schisms. If Sanders decides to run again this time, he should focus on policy and eschew character attacks on Democrats and admonish his supporters to do the same. Otherwise, they put the core values we all share at risk yet again. Let me see if he's ready. You there, man? Arjun is here. What's up? Let's put some D's and some A's. I don't know, man. That sounds like an activity that you can do by yourself. Glad to have you here. I don't know where Lennon McCarthy is, but he's supposed to join. So yeah, that's about it for that story. We'll have his reaction as soon as we can, but I gotta move on because it is getting a little late, and I don't like doing this as much as I used to late, but I felt like, once in a while is okay. Media Matters hires ex-New Yorker fact checker who falsely said ICE agent had a Nazi tattoo. So this is something last week, Hard Bastard had his live stream when I think it was on Thursday. It was either Thursday or Friday, and he actually mentioned the story with Tamar Lappin from the New York Times. And I thought that he was talking about this woman, Talia Lavin. Now, I can say this, but I think that these two women are from the same social circles, essentially. I'm not saying that they know each other. I'm saying that they're from the same social background. Tamar Lappin and Talia Lavin those are the types of names of kind of a Long Island-esque modern Jewish woman. Okay? I'm just putting it out there. And therefore, these are the types of people. Okay? It's just the type of person who I think they get into this situation. I'm not citing any malice. I'm not calling this a conspiracy. I'm saying that the type of behavior she's exhibiting is typical of that type of person, and therefore it doesn't surprise me that she gets into this situation where she basically assumes that somebody has a Nazi tattoo, makes a false claim, and has to resign from her job. Let me see if Lennon is ready. Right wing is killing the game. I'm just going to call him directly. Calling Lennon McCarthy. Let's see if he picks up. All right. I think there might be some problem. Okay. Here we go. Len McCarthy is here.
All right. Is that see me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Come on.
He is on. And Lennon, what do you feel about torpedoing the chance to liberate America in 2020?
Okay, so there's a little bit of lag and stuff I'm setting up, so I don't know if you changed topic enough or not from the Bernie stuff. Is that what you're talking about?
It's kind of the same story. It's related to it.
Are they actually? So this is all about Hillary? Like, do they think it's 2015 or what?
Well, they're saying,
don't say stuff about Hillary.
They're saying
Hillary lost.
Beto is the new Hillary.
She didn't win then. She's never winning. She had her greatest chance to be president in 2016. I mean, These, okay. The only like the most diehard Hillbots want her to be president. Some of them are embarrassed by her. You know what I mean? Even some of the Hillbots, you're like they say some bullshit, and they're like, you're doing whataboutism. Hillary's a saint, and you're like, yeah, Hillary 2020, and they're like, shut up, she's not running, shut up.
Yeah, a lot of them. There's a guy who would actually he'd comment on my videos and he'd say, "Why are you still talking about Hillary? She's not even in politics anymore." And I'd say, I could be fooled because she's touring around the world, she's signing her books, she's raising money, she's doing a Broadway tour. She's basically behaving as if she's still in politics. You're the one behaving as if she maybe you're not really clued in. And the guy would basically, I think he might have been one of these Media Matters people because he would just react as if I was, like at one point he said, "Well, you're like Biff from Back to the Future." I'm like, I don't care. Like, I like the fact is that Hillary Clinton still thinks that she's relevant in politics, and I'm going to treat her as such until one day somebody shoves a stake through her heart peacefully.
Peacefully, sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, she's quoted saying stuff like, I'd like to be president, and like putting it out there a little, not like a definite announcement she's running, but putting it out there, her and her people doing it. And then some of the outlets are like, yeah, it's a right-wing conspiracy theory. They're saying she's running. What a crazy, those right-wingers trying to divide us.
Well, I've got a theory about why her dogs are out against Bernie Sanders this time, and I want to hear your opinion about it. So here it goes. Wow, I've been on air for a while. I don't think I'm going to be on for more than 10 minutes, but here it goes. So they're protecting Beto O'Rourke right now, and what's going to happen in 2020 is you might have Hillary run, but in any case, they're going to try to split the votes up in such a case that a progressive candidate like Bernie Sanders or whoever, Tulsi Gabbard, won't be able to get a majority, and they'll be able to cobble together a majority of delegates for their chosen candidate. And that candidate might be Hillary Clinton, or that candidate might actually offer the VP spot to her.
I think if Hillary Clinton and her campaign actually wanted to win instead of like fucking around and being full of hubris, they should have made. Obviously, Bernie is pliable to demands, so they should have just chosen him as VP. I mean, yeah, I'm in retrospect. I mean, well, I might have actually voted for Hillary/Bernie, but in retrospect, if I had a time machine, then no, I still wouldn't. But I'm just saying, if they wanted to win, because people saw that the Bernie supporters, some of them decided to just be blue-pilled, and they're still around today, being blue-pilled and and loving Hillary or whatever, or pretending that they don't like her, but really supporting the neoliberals at the end of the day. But she could have done that, but she picked Tim Kaine, who's another neoliberal. And then she had a health scare, and then the DNC floated that they were gonna probably nothing would happen, which it didn't. But if worst comes to worst, they'd replace her with Tim Kaine or Joe Biden. This is after the contentious, the primary between her and Bernie. So obviously, it would have made sense if somehow, for like health reasons, it would have made sense to replace her with Bernie because of all the people voting for him. But whatever. That was actually the moment when I said "fuck Hillary." By the way, in my head, I was just like, you know what, fuck Hillary. I'm never Hillary. What, she can go to hell. Because I was just like, what the fuck are they even doing? Because I was conflicted for a little bit because I was like a big Bernie fan, and then he's coming out and saying vote for Hillary, and I'm like, wait a minute. I'm like, Hillary's fucking horrible, and he's like, but Bernie says vote for her, and I had to mull it over for a while. But eventually I just decided, the hell with Hillary, it's ridiculous.
All right, so David Brock, obviously he came out with this story. I can't believe NBC, if they really, I mean, it just shows how little credibility they have because he hired this woman, Talia Lavin, who was responsible for a hoax in the New Yorker where they claimed that a ICE employee who was disabled had a Nazi tattoo. So he can't pick journalists who have integrity. he's not a journalist who had his integrity. He's gone his entire life in politics. I mean, he was the person who claims that he smeared Anita Hill, and when he was a Republican, and then he had this moment when he saw the light and became a Democrat, I guess, and started lying about Republicans. So that I don't understand why anybody would trust him. He's basically lied about everybody except for
Hillary Clinton at first when he was running against her. Now, I didn't understand. Now, another thing is, like, the criticism is so invalid when they're like, and then Bernie said this, and that just elevated the Trumpsters, and it was, no one, you can't criticize Hillary. Like, what the fuck? Like, Bernie, yeah, you know what? When Bernie was running against Hillary before the primary was over, I listened to what he had to say, and yeah, I started to wake up to Hillary being a giant crook and fraud because I just sort of had, I knew who she was. I didn't have a strong opinion about her because I didn't pay attention. You know what I mean? I didn't necessarily like her on a personal level. At that point, I was going to vote for her, though. Like, she had the Democratic Party had my vote to lose pretty much at the beginning of 2016. They had my vote and they lost it. Yeah, so it's just ridiculous. And then Bernie, he didn't totally take the gloves off either. He had that agreement we now know. And also he said he didn't care about her emails whatsoever. So it's not like he just took the gloves off and went crazy on her, but he said enough that was effective, like about her being two-faced, having a public and private position, Goldman Sachs, just the things that are really clear and obvious that you can say, like, why you shouldn't vote for Hillary. Based mostly on her policies and not any, he wasn't saying that she was a murderer or anything. This is based on her policies.
No, he
it's totally legitimate criticism, by the way.
Yeah, he could have criticized her for a lot more. The things that Brock complained about him criticizing her for are all true, and the fact is that they slung shit at him too. So it's
it's ridiculous, and they're doing it again. And I think Beto is. I mean, yeah, maybe he can get a lot of votes. I don't. It just seems like another manufactured puppet. I mean, it just seems totally inauthentic. Maybe whatever. I mean, I wouldn't vote for any of them. I would if Tulsi became the nominee, I would listen to her debate Trump and everything, and I would weigh it. But generally speaking, I mean so that's the person. If they ran as a Democrat, I would listen to them. I would listen to Bernie too, but I'm not, since he's lying to and about Trump right now, and he's just blah 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 and pushing bullshit. I don't think I would vote for him. But like I would listen to any of them. But generally speaking, if somebody's running as a Democrat, I'm not voting for him.
Yeah, I think I'm leaning towards just voting for Trump, and I'm not even the Libertarian Party. I don't think is really going to offer a candidate. That's the only other party I think would present even a candidate that I'd consider voting for. So at this point, I think I'm going to vote for Trump, but we'll have to see. It's stupid to commit, but with the Bernie people, I think what they're really scared of is more just the fact that they're his supporters are so hardcore. That's really what they're afraid of. Yeah. Not necessarily him. I have one last story. You can stick around if you want, but I'm going to finish with this. So I don't know if you guys heard over the past week, there was a Cleveland Clinic doctoral residency student who was flagged for claiming that she would give Jews the wrong meds. So there was a lot of misinformation going on about this. Now, my mom was a nurse, and she was alive. I think that from the medical professionals that I've met, they said, yeah, that's absolutely unacceptable. The fact is that she tweeted this out in 2012. So that was almost 7 years ago, prior to her actually getting her medical certification. So it is it's not a cut and dry issue. But the fact is that you can't have people running around that will violate the Hippocratic Oath in a hospital. I don't think it's necessarily.
She could speak at the Women's March, though.
Oh, absolutely. Right? Yeah. so
perfect.
The reason I'm highlighting this, if you've been here for a while on this stream, before you came on. But I've been talking about the, journalistic standards. So this was a story where I found that the best standard for getting this story right was actually from Breitbart, and they were one of the first ones. And they claimed that this resident had been let go from the residency program. And I actually know somebody who was in the same residency program, and he basically confirmed most of the details in the Breitbart version. But over the weekend, I was receiving a lot of messages, not messages to me, but I was seeing people posting afraid that she's still possibly poisoning patients. And I think that's one of the problems too. I mean, this is a person I won't want her treating patients. I also don't want her being threatened herself. This is a person I think that the Cleveland Clinic dealt with her appropriately. They removed her from the program. They're conducting an investigation. They're giving her the right to appeal it, which is fine. I don't think she's going to win, and I don't think a hospital should employ someone who this is something that they try to stay away from because they have liability. In case a patient does get a bad drug prescription, they don't want to be held liable for hiring somebody with statements like this. So she actually apologized, and her apology is kind of strange because she went to a Jewish college, Touro College, which is in New York, and people were laughing. They're like, well, how did she come out so anti-Semitic from a Jewish college? And, I guess some people were like, well, do we really act like such jerks or something?
If it's not improper, I haven't been following it closely. If it's not improper to ask, what is her demographic background? Is she a white woman or Muslim or what?
She's apparently a third-generation Palestinian American.
Oh, okay. That's a shocker. Anyway,
so it
just seems like it's kind of like a common theme. I don't know. I mean, people have a First Amendment right to do stuff like advocate for Palestine, but some of that other stuff is kind of, not stuff that you want to say and then still have a job.
Right. So a lot of her other tweets were pretty, they were pretty hardcore, saying Allah will take. So they have it on the Breitbart story. It says Allah will take the Jews who exiled us from our country. Jewish settlers in Palestine are the descendants of the Nazis. She said, Haifa is sweet and nice, but it's full of Jewish dogs, and it looks like America, meaning it wasn't that special. So Haifa, I actually used to live there in Israel. So she said a lot of racist things. That's not what got her fired. It was the specific quote about the tweet about possibly
well, she should just become active in liberal activism. I think that's fine. I don't think the people on the left, the alleged left, I don't think they'll have any problem with that. It's pretty fashionable to say stuff like that.
Yeah, exactly.
Maybe she should run for Congress and say, fuck the president. Actually, she missed the boat on that. That could have been like her, hey, everybody, look, I got in trouble for saying shit about Jews and stuff, but I'm a Muslim, so it's okay, so vote for me.
Actually, from what I understand, she's a Christian Arab, which I think is.
I didn't even know. Okay, so that's actually a surprise. Okay, well, so I don't want to.
A lot of people were
stereotype the Muslim Palestinian. Apparently, there are actually Christians in the Middle East that hate Jews. I didn't even know that was like a thing, but I guess that's the thing too.
Well, I think that the details of how she came to think this are kind of murky. So, I don't think that that's necessarily the point. Now, she put a full statement out here.
Okay, well.
It said, so I think, like you, I think that people should be allowed to say hateful things. But, in medicine, there are professional standards, and that one tweet did violate them. That's really the issue here. And a lot of people were missing that point. But a lot of people were saying, the issue is if she can actually poison patients, it's a real problem. So several social media comments posted on my Twitter account years ago have surfaced recently, causing pain, anguish, and a public outcry. I wish sincerely and unequivocally to apologize for the offensive and hurtful language contained in those posts. This statement is not intended to excuse the content of the posts, but rather to demonstrate that those words do not represent who I am and the principles I stand for today. Yeah, whatever. I visited Israel and the Palestinian territories every summer through my adolescent years. I became incensed at the suffering of the Palestinians under the Israeli occupation. The injustice and brutality of the occupation continues to concern me, and I believe every champion of human rights owes it to humanity to work towards a just and peaceful resolution of this crisis. As a girl in my mid-teens and early 20s, I had difficulty constructively expressing my intense feelings about what I witnessed in my ancestral land. Like many young people lacking life experience, I express myself by making insensitive remarks and statements of passion devoid of thought, not realizing the harm and offense these words would cause. These posts were made years before I was accepted into medical school. When I was a naive and impressionable girl barely out of high school, I matured into a young adult during the years I attended college and medical school and adopted strong values of inclusion, tolerance, and humanity. I take my profession and the Hippocratic Oath seriously and would never intentionally cause harm to any patient seeking medical care. As a physician, I will always strive to give the best medical treatment to all people, regardless of their race, religion, ethnicity, or culture. I have learned from this experience and am sorry for the pain I have caused. I pray that the Jewish community will understand and forgive me. I hope to make amends so that we can move forward and work together towards a better future for us all. So I don't think it's an issue of forgiveness. You know, people can forgive. It's up to every individual. I think it's an issue. I mean, I think, first of all, what she said about her views changing, it didn't pan out because a lot of the tweets that I read were from much more recently. So, you know, I think she just constructed this letter based on her lawyer's advice or something, and that's the way it was. So, you know, I guess you know, good luck paying back those loans. That's all I can say.
Yeah, I don't know. I guess it depends on if you believe she's sincere and everything, and how big of a deal you think it is. And yeah, I don't know.
Well, no, I mean, but the thing is, it's not up to the Jewish community whether a hospital will hire her now that they know that she has a post that would essentially violate the medical code of ethics.
So is this up to the free market then? Is that what this is?
Well, I think it's up to the medical boards, not the free market.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
not the same thing.
All right. If all these people
let them figure it out. I don't know.
Yeah. Anyway, that's about it, guys. Thanks, Lennon. Do you have anything to say before we leave? Because we've kind of
No, that's okay. I mean, I'm working on some stuff. There's some stuff I'm working on that's more produced, like cartoons and stuff. So hopefully I'll get that done.
Yeah. Follow him. What's your handle now on Twitter? Do you not want to give it out anymore because they keep destroying your accounts?
Well, I don't know. My good friend is at Lenin Not, so it's N-O-T, so LENINNOT. That's my good friend that shares my videos and stuff.
Right, and he's also on Gab at Lennon McCarthy.
Gab is just Lennon McCarthy, and it's one word.
Yeah, I'm actually doing a lot more on Gab than I used to, so
I should get back on. I haven't been very active on there. I should check it out a little bit more.
Well, I mean, it's a better place to grow. So that's about it. Please like this video, subscribe to the channel, subscribe to my other channel on Cocoscope and on BitChute, as well as my non-political channel, Razor Ray Special Cuts. Len McCarthy on YouTube. You can find him. It's called Len McCarthy. That's his channel. And you can find all the other social media stuff below, and I'll probably update some more links later in the description. Have a good night.
Thanks, Paul.
Thanks,
Night.
Lennon. Good night.